First thing I really wanted to talk about is my mom. So it's September, and my mom has been gone for several years. She passed away in September of 2021. And her death was honestly very unexpected, not something that any of us thought would happen. You know, she really was a remarkable woman. She was an immigrant, so she immigrated to the US from Germany and started a new life here, leaving everything that she had behind. And she never got to go back home and see her loved ones or see her old house or anything like that. And I think that that makes someone very brave to come to a new country and to honestly leave everything behind and never ever go back. She wanted to go back, but she never had the opportunity to do so. So that was very hard on her. But she came from this small village in Gießen, which is in Hessen, the state of Hessen. She came from a small village there. Reiskirchen is the name of the village, and it's a little small town where, you know, everybody knows each other, and they had like community bakehouses, so you could bake your bread and your cakes and all these things in a community bakehouse, and they had a farm and all this stuff. The way she talked about her childhood, it sounded so nice, especially compared to today, but she did grow up in a very different world. She grew up in post-World War II Germany. So this Germany was just devastated after World War II. And everything that her parents had was basically destroyed. And if you know your history, Germany had to be like rebuilt from the ground up. And there was a lot of trauma behind that for her. Her father was also a prisoner of war. He was sent to Stalingrad in Russia and saw a lot of horrible things there. So he carried that trauma with him. And of course, from what we're learning now with trauma, it seems to be passed down at an almost cellular level now. And then her mom was running and trying to save her baby from the bombings in Kassel, Germany. So a lot of trauma there that she was carrying around. But, you know, they made do with what they had, and she had a happy childhood, right? And so she came to this country, and, you know, she married my dad, who's American. So met him over there, overseas, when he was stationed over there. They got married, they came here, and they had me. And one of the funniest stories that my mom told me was when my dad was out in the field, and they were living on base, and he was out in the field for a couple days, and how there was this woman who lived there. She was also an immigrant, but she was from Korea, and how she was, you know, pickling her fish or drying her fish or whatever it was, and doing her kimchi. And then my mom was working on pickles. And it's like they kind of bonded over pickling, you know? They didn't speak each other's language, but had a friendship over that. But I guess this whole video is just for me to honor my mom. She really was just a phenomenal person, a very hardworking woman. She ended up having 3 jobs, which I think is just amazing. A full-time job and 2 part-time jobs. But she did this so we as a family could survive. And I think that that's what a lot of immigrants end up doing. You know, they sacrifice so much for their families. And I think that's really beautiful, and it still really touches me that she did that. She was a very funny person. My mom was very, very funny. One of her favorite types of TV shows was British comedy. So she liked that dry humor. That was her favorite genre of TV show. And she loved keeping up appearances. I don't know if any of you guys have seen it before. It's from the late 80s and 90s. It is hilarious. It's about this woman who I would type as an ESFJ. And she wants to have these perfect parties, and she wants everything to be perfect. And her last name is Bucket. And she says bouquet. And whenever she answers the phone, she's like, "The bouquet residence, lady of the house speaking." And it's just so funny. Hilarious show. So my mom loved that. She loved Mr. Bean. I'm trying to think what else she liked. She liked Mama's Family. So she kind of liked that silly humor as well. That's something that I enjoy. And my mom liked a lot of dramas. She liked the show Vera. I don't know. She loved that show. It was too gory for me, but she liked those kind of mysteries. And you know, with my mom and I, like, we had this ritual from when I was in high school through, I don't know, my early 20s, because I lived with my parents for a bit of time after college. So my dad was a long haul driver, so it was just my mom and I for, you know, several years. And we had this ritual where I would get out of college. I was attending a community college at the time, and I would usually get out of school around 2 o'clock, and that's when she got off work. She worked at a school cafeteria, like an elementary school cafeteria, and I would usually take the bus, and I would take the bus to a certain point, and my mom would be just waiting there. So she would pick me up at this bus stop, which was just so hilarious. And then we would usually drive to Target and just like window shop and just look at things and try on clothes that we knew was, you know, just stupid or silly. We would just try it on, and then we'd go home and we'd get in our jammies and make dinner together, and we would just like crawl into bed. So my parents' bed, and just watch TV and eat dinner. Like, it was just so funny. And then we had pet rabbits, and so the bunnies would be hopping around the bed, and here we are like eating nachos, and then rabbit would steal a chip, and I don't know, it was so much fun. And then we would have kind of like spa days together, where we would go do our own nails, because we couldn't afford getting our nails done. So we would do our own nails, or, you know, put face masks on and just be silly. It was a lot of fun. So my mom taught me a lot of things. She was an amazing cook and a great baker, and she could scratch cook. I mean, she could make anything, and she taught me that. So that's a skill that I definitely have and definitely use. I can cook from scratch. I can bake. My mom was very handy and frugal, which I think is very important and probably, a product of her upbringing and being an immigrant. So she definitely taught me that. And I have lived on next to nothing. We have lived on next to nothing, and we've made it work. And that's one thing I definitely carry with me. My mom would say, we're not working class, we're working poor. I never saw it until I got older. And something that I still carry with me, no matter how much money I make, I will always identify with that class. Do you know what I mean? It's like you should never forget your roots and never forget your upbringing. And no matter how lucky, because I don't know if luck has to do with it, but no matter how lucky or blessed or, I don't know, easy things get for you in your life, you should never forget your roots. And she definitely taught me that. She made holidays special. She made holidays so special. I think a lot of moms do, but there was just so much magic with holidays with her. And she would blend, like for Christmas, she would blend German tradition and American tradition. My dad, he's American and he grew up with Southern parents. So Arkansas, and so, in my childhood, we had just this mix. So we would have German food. We would have like knödel and red cabbage. And here we have collard greens and succotash. And then a turkey and a roast. And it was just a blend of these different cultures together. But she always made it so special. It was just amazing, and I'm trying to get that feeling back. It's very hard with the holidays. Very, very hard, but I think it takes time. I'm still grieving, and I think it gets easier. Fall's usually a very hard time for me because of trauma, and this is also when my mom passed away. Today is the 16th of September, and during this week, she was very, very sick. She was in and out of the hospital. And I think it was the 19th of September is when she had a stroke and was actually hospitalized. So this is a very hard time for me. But with therapy and getting on the appropriate medications, which I'm telling you is very important. Don't be afraid or intimidated by that. It's getting better for me, and I've actually had that warm fuzzy feeling like I used to over the past couple days, which is just amazing to feel, and I haven't felt that in the fall for a very long time. I'm very thankful for that. Very, very thankful for that feeling because it's something that I haven't felt in a long time. So, yeah. Well, the other point I wanted to touch on was, it's kind of a segue, but it still has to deal with my mom. And that is the importance of our words, because our words do have power. And the other thing I want to touch on, and they go together, so just stay with me here. The other thing I want to touch on is how we should never be afraid of reaching out for help. And I'll explain how these go together. So my mom came here in the 80s, and I don't know if it was like the culture in America, but people were so cruel to her. So since she came to the States, she's been called a Nazi and asked if she participated in the Holocaust, which my mom, she wasn't alive, and her family did not. It was very hard for her. People would hear her accent and call her names. It wasn't everyone, but a small handful of people throughout her life, including family. Some of my dad's family was like that. It was very painful for her. Very, very painful. And she couldn't let it go. I think because there was so much trauma from her parents and her family that she was carrying with her, generational trauma, it hurt. Because again, her dad was captured and was a prisoner of war and basically tortured in Russia. He had so much PTSD from that. And of course, back then, they didn't really know how to help people with that shell shock or whatever they called it. So he had that. And then I think that my Oma, my mom's mom, she, I assume, would have PTSD too, or some kind of anxiety from having to run with this infant and try to hide from bombs falling from the sky. I mean, can you imagine that? That is so scary. Anyways, so these words really hurt my mom, and she carried them throughout her life. She was a very strong woman, don't get me wrong. My mom was very, very strong. But I think after time, these things really wore down on her, wore her down. But my mom, again, she was a very strong, tough woman. Like, very, very strong. Very, very fierce, independent thinker, feminist, But she had a colleague. I don't know what this colleague's problem was. But this coworker was so awful to my mom. They used to be friends. So this is the thing. They were friends. And as time went on, I mean, they worked for 20 plus years together. This woman was just attacking my mom. She would make fun of the clothes my mom wore. She would make fun of the car my mom drove. She would make fun of the fact that my mom had no family here, and that she had family, and how sad it was that my mom couldn't spend time with her parents before they died. And it hurts me thinking about it as well. Just the words that this woman used. She was prying in my life. When is Stephanie going to get married? How do you feel about having, a daughter who is basically a loser and is going to be like a hermit or a nun or whatever? Just cruel person, very cruel. And my mom could take it, but after a while, it got really, really, it got really, really bad. I mean, just think about it. Day in and day out, you're hearing this, What are you wearing? Look at your shoes. How come you drive this car? I drive a Lexus. I drive a BMW. You have this old Hyundai, you have this old Ford. You have, a shitty Toyota. Just day in, day out, and was following my mom everywhere at work. They worked in a cafeteria, and my mom was a very clean person, but this woman would follow my mom just to piss her off with bleach. So whatever surface my mom was touching, she would bleach it. And it's just disgusting. Why would you treat somebody that way? I think this woman definitely had some severe OCD issues. And she definitely, if she hasn't already, she definitely needs to get some therapy. But this woman was so cruel to my mom that my mom bid on a different location to work, and she got it. She was very happy. She was going to be working with a different student population in a different area of town, so she was excited for the change. And her coworker found out, and as they were prepping for the school year, my mom was working, prepping everything before school started, and this coworker came up behind her and just started screaming at my mom. And people around noticed, because my mom's best friend, who's like a mom to me, heard it and told me when I was at work. And my mom collapsed. My mom collapsed as this woman was yelling at her. And everyone was in shock, and they sent my mom home. And this was probably around this time frame. It was obviously in September, but it was around this time. And the harassment kept going, even when my mom was at home. And turns out, when that woman was screaming at my mom had a stroke at work. She had a stroke. She couldn't take it anymore. And my mom ultimately died from that, from a hemorrhage in her brain. And no, I'm not saying that this woman is 100% responsible. What I am saying is two different things. Number one, the words that we use are very important, and how we use them can affect somebody. And it can affect somebody in a way that you may not even understand or know. The words that this woman used had such a negative impact on my mom and her health. My mom's stress level was just declining. Like, what I'm trying to say is, my mom's stress was increasing over time from the words, and she'd come home and she'd ruminate and think about these things, and tell me, oh, this person said this, and cry, honestly cry. This is a grown woman in her 60s, right? This is just 50s and 60s. Just painful. So obviously the woman who is saying these things has her own mental health issues. It's obvious. I am not a psychiatrist, I'm not a psychologist, so I'm not diagnosing anybody, but I'm just saying, like, based on what I know about this person, because I've known her my entire life. And just based on the behavior, like how you treat somebody, and just the chronic OCD of just obsessively bleaching wherever anyone touches. I mean, it sounds like there's some issues, right? I don't think this person ever got help. I mean, I don't know. I don't interact with this person anymore. I cut them out of my life. Which is also very hard, because it's somebody that I've known my entire life, in addition to my mom. So that's very hard. But she doesn't deserve to have a relationship with me. So obviously this person has their own mental health problems, right? But still, my other point kind of ties in with this. I think mental health is like stigmatized in this country. We are ashamed to talk about it. We're ashamed to it's like sex, right? We're ashamed to talk about sex, and we're ashamed to talk about our mental health. And there's such a rise in mental health issues. And I feel like that happens when you are in a developed country and you have all this stimulation and like cell phones, and we're not interacting anymore. That's besides the point. That is beside the point. What I'm trying to say is we shouldn't be ashamed to ask for help. And I wish both of these women, wish my mom and this other person, especially my mom, wouldn't have been so afraid to find that, and I'm going to use this word and I don't mean it how it sounds, but find a lifeline. Find a walking angel, because they're everywhere. There's angels everywhere. There are people out there who will change your life, and that's what I'm referring to when I say angels. I don't necessarily mean like in the metaphysical, spiritual way, because I don't know your beliefs. I'm just saying there are people out there that I would consider angels. Excuse me. So I wish my mom would have talked to somebody. Therapy is very important, but I understand like generational thing. I mean, she grew up, she was a baby boomer, post World War II, tough as nails. But I think it's important for everybody to be able to get mental health help, care. And I think that would have really helped her kind of digest and work through the traumas that she carried with her. But she didn't do it, and she kind of ended up isolating herself from everyone. She had my dad and I, but she just like erased all of her friends, just had nobody in her life. And I think that's so incredibly sad and hurtful, because that's not living. And she was a very stubborn woman, and I know when she was alive I was trying to get her to see a therapist or talk to somebody, but she didn't want to do it. But we shouldn't be ashamed to ask for help, or to just tell somebody what's going on. Find somebody that you trust and talk to, because stress really does have an impact on your body, even at a cellular level. It really does, and it affects your health. People have heart attacks and strokes all the time from stress. People get diseases from stress. So I kind of went all over the place in this video. But I guess the point I am trying to make are that my mom was a very remarkable person, and I miss her a lot. And I feel like she's always there with me and kind of guiding me in a way, guiding me through life. And I'm very happy for that. I definitely think that we shouldn't be ashamed of getting help. We shouldn't be ashamed of talking to people, reaching out, trying to, make a connection with somebody, build that trust, and build a good, happy, healthy relationship. Whether it's a friendship, mentor, romantic relationship, whatever it is. Like, we shouldn't be ashamed. Mental health is very important. I wish that this country would take it more seriously. We shouldn't be ashamed of going to see a psychiatrist. We shouldn't be ashamed of telling people about our issues that we're having, our symptoms, because we can get help. We really can. So those are kind of my thoughts for the evening. I know I kind of ranted, but I don't know. This is my first vlog, so I'm really not sure how it should go, but I thought I would just share my feelings, and I'll probably share some more over the next couple days. But one other thing I wanted to say is, even though my mom kind of isolated herself, she was a very cautious person. Very, very cautious. She wanted to do so much in her life. Like, there was a lot of things that she had on her bucket list, but obviously she had me, and so I was a priority, which I understand. Like, parents make their children a priority, as they should. But even, as an adult, me being an adult, she didn't do the things that she wanted to do. I know money was a factor, but still, you can do things without spending money, and she didn't do it. So one of the things that I'm doing in my life now is I'm going out there and I'm trying new things, and I'm experiencing new things that I never thought I would. I'm meeting people. I am, not spending a lot of money, but I'm just experiencing life, because that's not something that my mom did. And I don't know if you can hear that, but somebody's like racing down the street. I think it has made life very enjoyable. Very, very enjoyable. And I was a lot like my mom before I, got help myself. I was a lot like her, and very sheltering myself. I was preventing new experiences. I was not allowing myself to experience new things, which at the time felt safe. But is that really living? I mean, I guess if that's what you really want to do, if you really want to be sheltered and it feels good to you, fine. But for me, it didn't feel good. Even though I said it was safe, it just didn't feel good, I was watching other people enjoying life, and I wasn't. So I'm doing that for myself, and I'm doing that for her. And it's made life enjoyable. So I guess that's the other point I'm trying to make here. Get out there, enjoy life. Don't be afraid of getting help. Don't be afraid of meeting new people, building a trusting relationship, and just, being vulnerable with them, because that's important. Make connections with others. Seek help if you need it. If you need to talk to a therapist, if you have all these symptoms and it's encouraged that you see a psychiatrist, then I would recommend doing it. It's very important. Your mental health is so important. And this is something that I wish my mom would have done. But, can't change that now. But I'm just encouraging all of you out there to do these things and to live your life, to be happy, build those relationships, be vulnerable with others, stand up for yourself, and don't be afraid of getting help, because it's out there. All right, so I'm going to go inside now, but I just wanted to share my feelings and thoughts. Bye, guys.